today or will be here in the course of the day. I will just recognize these important ministers, Mr. Adrian Forde from Barbados, who traveled from Barbados to come here. We already heard Ambassador Correa do Lago and many other important authorities that will be here representing different levels of government here in Brazil, showing the leadership for transition to sustainable consumption and production patterns. Minister Maisa Eloisa Rojas from Chile, Fernando Lopez, El Salvador, Virato Sanchez, Guinea-Bissau, Letsema Andonsi from Lesotho, Aim Behadun Sahi, who is here with us today from Nepal, the Minister of also Environment and Forestry of Laos, and Abdullah bin Abdulaziz from Qatar. Thank you, ministers, for coming here and showing with your presence the leadership that member states are taking to advance the Sustainable Development Goals. In addition to ministers, I really want to recognize and appreciate the presence today of a number of significant, important, relevant member states who are also taking action in their own way. Argentina, Belgium, China, European Union, Finland, Germany, India, Italy, Jamaica, Mexico, Mozambique, Netherlands, Oman, Philippines, Russian Federation, Saudi Arabia, Sri Lanka, South Africa, Slovakia, Switzerland, Tanzania, Turkey. The list is indeed quite long and quite impressive. Leadership does not only retain the primary responsibility of governments, but change cannot happen only with legislations, only with resolutions, only with decisions of governments. Governments depend on institutions and stakeholders that make possible change. And in this regard, I really want to appreciate the time that local authorities have taken to be here with us today. Foundations, NGOs, academia, financial institutions, specifically also the private sector representatives that are here, and the United Nations agencies and families. We, through the United Nations and the One Planet Network service by UNEP, provides that space for these actors to come together. And on behalf of the United Nations entities, particularly, of course, UNEP was represented here by Madam Elizabeth Merema, Deputy Executive Director of United Nations Environment Program. But not only UNEP here, this is not a UNEP forum. This is also a forum of the ILO, of UNICEF, of the UN Convention on Biological Diversity, the UN High-Level Panel on Women's Economic Empowerment, UN Habitat, UN Tourism, UN Trade and Development, the UN Convention to Combat Desertification, the UN Forum on Indigenous Peoples, and the International Resources Panel, just to quote a few. Last but not least, in terms of recognizing who are the stakeholders that are needed to take change, I want to spend a few minutes just speaking about two important stakeholders. First, I will speak about the youth. And we're talking here about one planet that we want to handle with care. We want to handle it with care for the present, but also, most importantly, our responsibility is to handle it for future generations. And if you have a moment today, and all of you that have achieved significant responsibilities in your areas of expertise, please spend some time to engage, discuss, share advice, in particular to our wonderful volunteers that are wearing these beautiful shirts that says One Planet, Handle with Care. They come and they have been an important asset of this forum. They all are students of international relations from the Federative University of Rio de Janeiro, and they want to learn from you, but they also want to challenge you. They also want to ask you questions. And so these are, in a way, our future ambassadors, and we owe a responsibility to them. All together, we comprise this network that's helping advance the sustainable consumption and production agenda, and I repeat, changing the way we think, we act, and inspire. As I conclude, and as we look forward to these wonderful days of discussions and dialogue, I believe that we have an opportunity to achieve a number of goals. Of course, it's important that we look back and we celebrate all the milestones that as a network we have achieved through our programs, through our impact initiatives, through the individual and organizational members that are part of the One Planet Network, comprising over 4,000 individual organizations and more than 6,000 individual members. Let's also look forward And as we celebrate action, as we learn, as we share experience, let us challenge ourselves to set direction and raise ambition for the network, for people, and for our planet. Specifically, and this is where we look forward to seeing leadership and the board of the 10YFP that comprises 10 member states, and we will hear about them a bit more in our conversation. We'll remind you, we hope that these 2 days of deliberation conclude with an important call for action that sets direction for the next year of the network and helps us impact important multilateral processes such as the G20, the Summit of the Future, the United Nations Environmental Assembly, and the conferences of the parties of the Climate, Biodiversity, and Pollution Conventions. So let us raise impact on finding solutions for more sustainable tourism practices. Let us work hard in these next 2 days for enabling inclusive solutions that will unlock the barriers to transform our food systems. Let us work for integrating circularity criteria in the public procurement of both food and construction assets. And let us work also towards increasing the use of established guidelines and principles for providing product sustainability information, the consumption information agenda. Let us support and find ways to support countries and industries prioritizing and implementing sustainable and circular economy innovations and solutions into their national determined contributions and the strategies for addressing biodiversity and pollution agendas. Last but not least, let us also prioritize and promote disclosure measures on circular economy approaches, particularly for the private sector, which is eager to lead in the circular economy agenda, but it's also waiting signals from governments. How can we move towards a global circularity protocol for business that helps us measure, account for, and transform our value chains for more circular economy practices? Last but not least, let us all work together in providing greater visibility to those groups that have been left behind in our linear economical transitions, particularly those that are at the bottom of the pyramid and sustain the circular economy agenda. I think of marginalized communities, I think about waste speakers, I think about indigenous peoples that have been left behind. Now they have to be at the center of our deliberations, including with a gender perspective. We call upon you to embed these important social dimensions in the way we think sustainable consumption and production, and we act for circular economy approaches. Only this way will be possible to use the wonderful tools that we have to reduce inequalities, to promote and achieve just transitions for all. So on behalf of the wonderful team that services the One Planet Network and the 10YFP, I want to welcome you, wish you excellent 2 days, and we are at your service to support you in these 2 days of discussions. Thank you very much.